Welcome to A Styled Life, the podcast for purpose-led female founders and senior leaders ready to use style as a powerful tool for confidence, impact and influence. I'm your host, Alex Standley, multi-award-winning personal stylist, speaker and sustainable fashion consultant with 2 decades of experience in the fast-paced world of fashion. Join me as we redefine success from the inside out. This podcast isn't just about clothes. It's about personal power, purposeful style, and creating a life that aligns with your values. So whether you're running a business, leading a movement, or stepping into your next chapter, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll dive into the world of personal style, sustainability, female empowerment, and living with intention through real stories, expert insights, and plenty of inspiration. Today is a bit of a personal episode because I'm seeing the same pattern come up for my clients as did for me last year. As my business evolved and I rebranded to Alexandra Standley, my aspiration was that everything was going to become more premium and more personal and just reflective of how my business had grown and how my business had evolved. And I started to have at first a quiet thought that then became louder and louder, which was, does success mean I need to tone myself down when it comes to my style? And this is obviously huge for me because I walk my talk. I very much embody the work that I do with my clients. And so thinking, does success mean I need to tone myself down and be more neutral, more understated, less bold? And the interesting thing is I see this happen with my clients all the time. Not because they lack confidence and not because they don't know who they are, but because they're growing and they're evolving. And that growth brings different and new visibility. That visibility brings exposure. And exposure brings a very human fear, if you like. Will they take me seriously if I look like myself? And when women step into bigger roles, whether that's charging more leadership, more visibility, something subtle shifts and they start editing themselves. And it's not dramatic. It can sometimes just be very slight. So it could be the bright, bold colour becomes navy, or the quirky detail gets left at home, or the statement earrings feel a little bit too much, or the playful edge becomes something like a safe, tailored suit. And colour is usually the first thing to go. And then, the interesting details that make you unique. Because somewhere along the line, we absorbed this idea that serious equals neutral, sophisticated equals subtle, premium equals beige. And I really want to gently challenge that because I found myself in this space last year and it felt really uncomfortable. And I'll be honest, I had people at the time saying to me, well, maybe you do need to tone it down a bit now because you've evolved and your business has grown and you're, working with different clients and operating in different spaces. And maybe you won't feel like you want to, wear the bold colour, but actually, I really considered that for quite some time. And yes, my style has absolutely evolved and absolutely changed and become more refined. But I didn't want to lose what makes me me and ultimately what brings me joy, what lends me energy and confidence when I'm not quite feeling it. And all of those things are, for me, aligned with wearing bright, bold colours, having those quirky little details that speak to my personality, that make me feel unique, that make me feel special. And ultimately, your style should do all of those things. It should give you energy. It should give you confidence. It should lift you up. It should light you up. It should really speak to who you are. Because ultimately, when you walk into a room of people, you don't want to be second guessing yourself or thinking like, is what I'm wearing right for this particular room? Or, how are people going to receive me? You want to walk into a room and feel like this is me and not even have a second thought about your outfit, to be quite honest. It should literally just be like a second skin. And that's how I feel in myself now and in my clothing. And it often surprises people when I go to events and things like that, they're like, oh, you must have, planned your outfit, weeks in advance and things like that. And I don't, because it just doesn't take up that mental headspace that it can for many women, because I'm so sure of myself and I'm so confident in my style that I can literally decide a couple of days before, or the night before sometimes, if I'm honest, what I'm going to wear, because I know that everything in my wardrobe is really aligned with the woman that I am and the woman that I'm becoming. And so I know that I feel really comfortable in what I'm wearing, and I know that it's all aligned. And don't get me wrong, there's always room for growth, and I'm always changing and adapting, and that comes with evolving my style as well. But the reason that this happens is because it's not actually about style or about fashion. It's about that feeling that we need to belong. And when you're operating in new spaces, your nervous system basically wants safety. And safety often feels like blending in. You don't want to look try hard. You don't want to look, unserious. You don't want to stand out in the wrong way. So you shrink visually. But shrinking and refining are not the same thing. And the turning point for me was, when I caught myself thinking I needed to become quieter, I realized something important. I didn't need to become smaller. I needed to become clearer in how I was communicating me and my personal brand. And obviously that became more front of mind when I rebranded, because I'd evolved everything to do with my brand from Luxe Leopard Lifestyle, which was all created by me. And it was, 6, 7, 8 maybe years ago when I first started my Instagram account. It wasn't even connected at the time that it was born to me and my work as a personal stylist. So I didn't lose my bold colours. I just refined how I was wearing them. I didn't lose my edge. I added some more structure and some sharper silhouettes and some more kind of formal styling. But I didn't abandon my personality. I just elevated it. And that's evolution. And that's what we want. We don't want to erase our personality. We want to evolve. And, it's like I've spoken before on this podcast about that whole past, present, future model that I use with my clients. And that's so important, because at your core, you're still, the same person. And there's going to be things from your past that you want to bring forward, and from your present. And then there's things that you haven't quite evolved into yet from your future that we need to take into consideration when it comes to your style as well. So it's kind of like bringing together all those different pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. And what I see with my clients when they come and work with me inside my one-to-one styling programs like the Luxe Style Formula, they often think that they'll need a whole new style, like a whole new aesthetic, and they don't. And what we actually unpack in those sessions and in, the very detailed kind of onboarding questionnaires is, what parts of you are you muting because you think success requires it? Like, is it like it was for me? Is it your colours? Is it your creativity? Is it your femininity, which is very common in, corporate kind of male dominated environments? Is it your edge? Like, we don't strip those things away, we just refine them. So we'll look at silhouettes, we'll look at fabrics, we'll look at fit, we'll look at proportions, we'll look at everything being really intentional in the way that we're creating outfit formulas and color palettes and every single detail of your style, so that your presence feels sharper, not quieter. And that's very different from just elevating your wardrobe. Like, I think for a lot of my clients, they will not really understand what elevating your wardrobe means. It's quite a fluffy term. And I think there's a lie that we've been told about sophistication. There's a quiet message in the business world and the corporate world that authority looks like quiet neutrals. But authority definitely doesn't come from beige. It comes from alignment. So if you're a bold, expressive, creative woman, dressing in muted, kind of anonymous clothes doesn't make you feel more powerful. It actually makes you feel slightly disconnected from who you are. And when you feel disconnected from who you are, then you're going to move differently in the rooms that you're operating in. Whether that's on Zoom or whether that's in person, you're going to be second guessing yourself. shrinking yourself, softening your voice. I'm not saying for any stretch of the imagination that clothes are everything. They're not, but how you feel in them absolutely impacts how you show up. And that's been proven through the concept of enclothed cognition, which was a psychological study that showed that the way that you dress directly impacts the way that you behave. It directly impacts your mindset. So although we've been taught that style and fashion are frivolous, it's far from it. And this all has such a huge impact on your mental load and how you're feeling and how you're showing up. So the big reframe here is that growth doesn't require you to dim yourself. It just requires you to define who you are now. And you don't have to dress like everyone else in the room to belong there. You just need to look like the most obvious or, refined version of yourself. Because there's a difference between dressing appropriately and dressing anonymously. Like you could be anyone else in that room. That doesn't serve you. It doesn't build a memorable personal brand. And ultimately, that's what we want to do. We really want to maximize the impact and the effectiveness of your wardrobe to build that really strong, memorable personal brand. Whether you are working in corporate or whether you're running your own business, everybody has a personal brand. And I think we often take for granted that our clothing is such a powerful tool in communicating for us. And especially when we are evolving and we are stepping up and we're, going after more visibility, or we're, really stretching our comfort zone, you can really actually use your clothes as a powerful tool to support you in that transition. Because, I recognize this from my own experience that it can feel quite scary to step into new rooms where you're, that whole saying of you're, a small fish in a big pond, where maybe you've been used to being a big fish in a small pond, and then it feels really stretchy. And I have definitely found from my own experience and from my clients' experience that if you can rely on your clothes to do some of that heavy lifting for you, but also to support you in bringing the right energy, bringing the right confidence, having those correct kind of first impressions when you're meeting new people. That is huge. And it's something we so often underestimate because we have been sold that lie about, style being frivolous. And it's why I'm so passionate about this work, because I want women out there making more money, like making more impact and having what you deserve and what you're passionate about. And caring about your style does not diminish any of those things. It actually supports and is like rocket fuel to your goals and to what you want to achieve. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but if you're stepping into something bigger and your visibility is increasing and your career or your business is evolving, and you've quietly wondered whether that means becoming more subtle, more neutral, more toned down, it doesn't. You don't need to lose your colour. You don't need to abandon your quirks. You don't need to trade personality for polish. You just need some refinement. And that's exactly the work that we do inside the Luxe Style Formula. It's not about changing who you are. It's about clarifying and elevating your wardrobe to align with that woman that you're becoming. So if that resonates, you know where to find me. You can book your free style strategy call in the links in the show notes. I would love to chat to you and have this be one of those things that gets ticked off your list for 2026. Because if you are going after more authority and this is your visibility era, your style needs to speak first. I'll catch you next week on the podcast where we have more amazing guests to talk with us. Thank you for tuning in to A Styled Life. If today's episode resonated, the best way to support the show is to share it with another trailblazer or leave a quick review. And if you're ready to align your style with your next level of impact, head to the show notes to book your free style strategy call. Because when your style aligns with your purpose, the world takes notice.